All right. All right, you guys. So I was told I'm the only one who's like, oh, it's hot out. It's hot in here, but apparently it's not. That's just me. All right, guys, let's get going. Steven, Jay, can I have you guys come sit up here, please? While you guys come up, everyone, this is not church, so you can move forward and find a seat near the front.
Works for me.
Not you. The one in the middle. Is this good if I sit in here?
Yes.
Okay. So I do have the microphone, so Jay, if you want to grab one. Okay. Because what I learned is when we have a panel, some people, like myself, are loud butts, and some other people are very quiet. Jay, you want to test it?
1, 2, mic test, 1, 2.
Yes.
All right.
Ready?
So then, all right. You guys, I'm looking forward to, I've been wanting to do, I've had it in my head, a few thoughts. Before we get started, real quick, we didn't talk about this before, so for those of you who are watching the replay, you always are going to miss when we talk shop beforehand with the deals, the announcements, but do you mind sharing what we just talked about? We're not going to go in depth, but if you guys don't know about this, do you want to stand up and mention it?
Yeah, sure. So I just learned about something called the Corporate Transparency Act. Very briefly, it just means that companies will have to report to a federal agency called FinCEN that they're the beneficial owner of an LLC. There's not a lot of details about
starting January 1.
How to do that reporting, but I'm just putting it on your radar. You know, if you've opened a bank account with an LLC lately, the banks are all looking for this. The beneficial owner is the person who ultimately owns the LLC, and the FinCEN is a financial crimes agency, and so it's just making it easier for them to track down people doing illegal stuff. So it's not really a problem unless you're doing illegal stuff. But just
but as far as the transparency part, right?
Yeah.
So Corporate Transparency Act.
Yeah, it doesn't start until 1/1/24, but you don't have to do it until I think the end of the year, and it may get pushed back. So
if you're not aware about it, do some research. Some attorneys who I like to follow are John Hyre, Hyre, and Jeff Watson. They don't speak about everything, but they speak about some things.
What's their names again?
Jeff Watson and John Hyre, Hyre. It's been a long day. Apparently my brain is telling me. You say time for a drink? No, that puts me to sleep. All right, guys. So look, I have a ton of ideas in my head of different panels I've wanted to do over the years. This has been one I've been wanting to do for a while, which is one of the top questions I get asked all the time is, Courtney, I want to buy a deal from a wholesaler, but I don't know if I'm buying. I don't know how to go about that process. I don't know how to find the good wholesalers, or I don't know if what the wholesaler is asking of me is right, or if they really got access to the deal. All this stuff, right? I want to be able to have a successful deal. How can I find that, do that? What's the process look like? So what we're going to do is, I've built this panel out here because we have both buyers and wholesalers on this panel. And the idea here is there's going to be some questions we're going to answer from the wholesaler's perspective, some from the buyer's perspective. Got it? I'm technically going to moderate, but also participate. So real quick, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Courtney Fricky, if I haven't met you, but I know most of you. I'm an active real estate investor. I got started flipping, but then I did wholesaling. I predominantly do buy and hold through creative financing, either acquiring or sometimes I also sell in creative financing, but I still relapse and wholesale sometimes, okay? But A lot of you guys know because I did the majority of my wholesaling here on the North Shore, but I've also wholesaled in Mississippi, New Orleans, all around. That's a little bit of my background. You want to introduce yourself?
My name's Steve Leonard. I am a full-time real estate agent for a full-service real estate company that we specialize in property management. I'm also a buyer. I don't do wholesaling, so I'm just a buyer side. And of the 320 or so doors that we manage at Pelican Realty, I own about almost 100 of them. Is where we're at right now.
And so he's going to be our one sole buyer. But okay, so then.
I'm Steve Keary from Homebuyer, Louisiana. So I do run a wholesale company here in Greater New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Northshore. So yeah, I wholesale very actively, full time. I do buy as well. So I mean, I source deals that I buy myself, but I also bought from wholesalers a number of times. So I'm mainly here to represent wholesalers, but I've bought a wholesalers too, so I can talk a bit on both sides.
My name is Jay Alexander. My company is Pinnacle Homes and Properties, and we've been in business since 2007. So I first got in fix and flip and buying homes. So we rehab hundreds of houses. We only will wholesale about 2 or 3 deals a year, but when the 2016 flood happened with Baton Rouge, we got into wholesaling a little more. So now our primary business model is wholesaling. I still do buy, depending on the deal. But I've done some new construction, some small developments, some short-term and long-term rentals. So that's a quick overview of what I'm doing. I'm representing wholesalers tonight.
But you've also bought from.
Oh yeah, I bought a lot of deals from wholesalers as well.
Okay. So I've done both. So I've wholesaled and bought from buyers. I also always forget when I hit my questions on my phone that my phone's the one recording. Every single time. This is why I usually have it written out, but which is why I said, Steve, where's that text thread? All right, for the record, Jay, can you explain to me for the record what wholesaling is if someone who's either watching the video or here today doesn't know what wholesaling is?
Gotcha. So my spiel when I first talk to buyers, because believe it or not, there's still a lot of buyers that really don't understand the whole wholesale thing. So I let them know that we are real estate investors. We actually are investors that provide off-market deals to other investors like yourself. And that kind of sums it up real quick to make somebody understand it. But to get a deeper dive, we're basically the middleman. We're basically a sales and marketing business where we get out and find these sellers, get the deal under contract at a discount, and put it, market up a little bit where we're able to still make money and feed our family and provide that deal for you. So it can happen from an assignment fee where we just charge you a fee, or we can do what's called a double close where we physically buy the property the same day and resell it to you. But the biggest thing is sales and marketing business, we get it at a discount where it's a win for us and there's still enough money in it for you to be able to cash flow or flip it and make money, whatever you're trying to do with it as well.
Steve, anything you want to add to that?
I think that was a perfect explanation. I'll just add that really, like, wholesaling isn't investing. Wholesaling is sales and marketing. So it's that sales and marketing part of the buying process, because, as a buyer, you probably want to, get off-market deals, discounted deals. To do that, you need to, find off-market deals. You need to market, you need to spend money, speak to people. For every one deal that we send out to you all, we're spoken to 20, 25 people that haven't worked out, you know what I mean? So really that sales and marketing function.
And that's if you're good.
Right.
If your sales and marketing skill have a little bit more work, it might be 60 to 100.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's really what it is. I mean, I'm an investor too, but for me, I wear 2 hats. My wholesaling business is a sales and marketing business, not investing. I do have separate LLCs, and sometimes I buy my own investments, and then I hold rentals, so I'm not really flip up. But that's a separate business. But you can do it all yourself if you want to, or if you want to just be a HGTV flipper, you can just buy the deals off wholesalers.
And a clarification I want to give is, what is for sale is not the houses, it is the contract, right? The opportunity is what's for sale. We're not, what it's not doing is saying, hey, look, I'm finding sellers and I'm going to go find buyers and marrying them together. No, that's what licensed individuals do, and that's not what here they're acting as the principal in the transaction. Their name is on the contract, buying the property, and then they're selling. They're basically saying, hey, buy me out of my position for this amount of a fee. Basically, is ultimately what happens. So
that's really important because it's illegal to sell a house.
Yeah.
But I will have a contract on a property, and I will offer my contract for assignment. So I'm really selling that contract, and that contract gives you the right to buy the house. So you will get the house, but like as a wholesaler, you cannot sell the house. You don't own the house. You don't have interest. You don't have a listing agreement. You cannot sell that, but you can contract to buy it. And you have in Louisiana, all contracts are assignable unless they say otherwise. You know, if you're a good wholesaler, you put in it that it's assignable too, but it doesn't even need that. As long as it says it's not assignable, you have the right to assign that contract to another buyer.
So real quick, and I want to kind of wrap this first point up. What is the role of a wholesaler in this industry? Who wants to answer that? Like, what's the importance of wholesalers in the industry?
For me, I would say where wholesalers come into play, being an agent, is finding the deals that, you know, some sellers, they don't have 6 months to sit on the market, or 3 months on the market. They don't need or have the time to take top dollar. So they need it today or tomorrow. That's where, to me, a wholesaler comes into play. I have buyers. I have a short list of buyers. He's got a big list of buyers, and Jay has a big list of buyers, and they can send out their contract should they get that property under contract and assigning their rights to it. Whereas for me, I'm going to do a fiduciary duty to put it on the market, list it with the MLS, get it with other agents, maybe do an open house if we have to find a buyer. That doesn't always accommodate a seller's needs at the time.
Yep. So it could be things like speed. It can be the messy, ugly ones. I got one. Yeah. Look, honestly, I mean, some of my biggest referrals are from agents with hoarders. I have to say that slowly so it doesn't sound like a whorehouse. Hoarder house. I mean, I guess I'd probably at some point we'll get a phone call about one of those too. But the reality is some of those things are just not. They're not your traditional listing. So, or there might be, you know, sellers who may not say, hey, I don't want to either pay a commission or I just want a net number. Give me that net number, and you know that's what they're looking for. There is value in the industry for them. So for the buyers here, so put your buyer hat on here if you do both roles. How do you most commonly receive deals from wholesalers? And so let's talk about that. How do you receive them? Like, so people talk about deals from wholesalers. I get people call me, Courtney, how do I get deals from wholesalers? How do I start getting in this, you know, funnel of deals?
For me, it was starting with the bandit signs. You find them on phone poles. You call the number, hey, I don't have anything to sell, but I do want to be on your buyer's list. That's typically how I got on a lot of the lists early on. And then as how we get them, it's typically going to be an email or a text. Sometimes they'll call you and send you something. I've actually received a postcard from a wholesaler. I've got this house to sell. I'm thinking that probably doesn't go over very well because, I mean, all you got to do is put it out to a few more people, and you know it should be sold by the time the mail gets to me. But typically, I'm getting them by email or text and phone calls every now and then.
Okay. Same thing.
Same.
So for me, I get a ton of them in my emails, and I do, you know, try to do my best to read them, go through them. Somehow my email gets around town. So like I have them from like Ohio, Texas. I'm like, I'm not even buying there, and I'm somehow on people's list. So Steve, do you want to explain maybe a common way that deals get sent out, like Investor with like the software that's in them?
Yeah. So there is some platforms, InvestorLift being a big one. Like there are some platforms who try to be a platform for wholesalers to list their properties. That generally end up getting emailed anyway. But you can go to like InvestorLift. There's probably a few connected investors, maybe. So there's a few places.
You should be able to put them on Bear Pockets. I don't know if you still can.
There's a few places you'll go and you'll see a bunch of them, but you can also subscribe. So mainly, like I don't really go to InvestorLift, but I maybe subscribe through InvestorLift to some of those deals, and they'll send me out and I'll go back there. Facebook is really common. Facebook groups.
Let's talk about all of our groups on there. You want to talk about your group?
Well, we run the West Bank Real Estate Investors group on Facebook, so people post deals there. particularly in the West Bank, anywhere in New Orleans.
So on Facebook, look up West Bank Real Estate Investors Group. If you're not in it, you've got a few thousand people in the group. Get on there. Deals are getting shared on there. Jay, y'all have a Facebook group?
Yeah, it's called Capital City Wealth Builders, and that's that group.
Capital City Wealth Builders. My group, I think we hit 3,500, but I don't recall. Southeast Louisiana Real Estate Investors Group. Southeast Louisiana Real Estate Investors Group.
Okay, and I mean, the other thing I'll say is coming to meetings like this.
Yeah.
Like meeting real people that are out.
Obviously, you heard all the deals a second ago,
Yeah.
right? That's a real life example. I have almost wrecked my truck. Well, I don't own a truck anymore. I almost wrecked my vehicle when I'd see one of those signs because I want to get to know every wholesaler. Whether they're going to send me a deal or not, I want the opportunity that they know to send me something, right? So it's important. All of those things.
Steven's tip on like the banner signs is smart because he's seeing people that are actually marketing. So the difference is they're out there looking for people. So like it's not active. I will just say about Facebook. I think Facebook's good, but don't just rely on Facebook as a buyer because most of the more established wholesalers won't post their deals on Facebook. I did when I started, so like I'm not saying you won't find deals on Facebook. I posted deals on Facebook. But I tried to get off that as soon as I can because Facebook is very public and I would prefer to control who gets my message and take them off if they're not acting the right way.
It's also fickle. You can go to Facebook jail for anything.
Right.
You sneeze the wrong direction and all of a sudden you can't post. And so I think I've put less than 30% of my deals on Facebook. And people are like, oh, you're not doing deals. I'm like, I'm doing deals. You're just not on my email list or you're not getting the phone. Some deals. Here's the other thing. So pro tip, if you're a buyer and you want to really know these things, find out the more professional wholesalers who are consistently doing deals and follow up with them. Hey, how you doing? You got anything available? If you start getting those routine phone calls, well, guess what? So for the wholesalers, have you ever had a deal that you did not email blast out?
All the time. It happens all the time. I guess we call those the pocket deals too, but a lot of guys that get those deals are people that do follow up with me. I have a handful of guys, every couple of weeks they check in with me. Man, what you got going on? I hadn't heard from you yet, Jay. What you got? I got too much money on my hands. I got to spend it. Where, what you have for me? And a lot of times I'll just finish, locking the contract up. It's fresh. And they ended up getting it just from following up with me.
That is definitely a pro tip for the buyers for sure because there's plenty of deals that haven't sent out. So Steven's bought a bunch of deals that haven't gone out. And the trick to that is just understand when you're doing wholesaling, there's normally some funny situation, right? Because you get a deal because it's foreclosure, it's hoarding, there's an issue, right? And sometimes those issues make the deals hard to really display too much, right? So some deals I don't want a bunch of people turning up. I don't want I need to control that deal. And those deals often, that's when you get a phone call. I know Steve, I've sold a lot of deals to Steven, so I know his buy box. So if I've got a deal like that, it's I don't really want a lot of heat. I know Steven will like it. I'm going to just call him. And that happens reasonably regularly. So but only because when Steven spoke, I know what he likes. Other people call me, or they give me feedback on the deals. And if I know what you want, I may call you when the deal really fits that criteria.
So speaking of this, buyers, when deals get sent to you, what information is helpful for you to know how, if you're going to pull the trigger and say, hey, I'm interested?
For me, the information I'm looking for is obviously location, price, somewhat condition, which you'll get in the pictures. I'm looking for flood zones, and for me, it's learning which wholesalers give you accurate information and which ones give you, false information or, high ARVs. We early on, I would look at a lot of that and I'd go back and see when somebody published an ARV or a property with their asking price and their ARV, where did it end up at when it was all said and done, whether it was a flip or a buy and hold, and did y'all get it appraised when you finished doing whatever work needed to be done, where did it end up? And, I would put my time into that to find out who's doing the real work and who's giving you false hopes. It's kind of like working with, valid wholesalers. who, like Steve said, will call me knowing that I'm a legitimate buyer, and he knows what I'm looking for and what areas I'm buying in, and what makes me happy when I find the right deal. That's a good wholesaler. The ones who, and I'll say the daisy chains, the wholesalers that may not go and find their own deal, but always just tag on to another wholesaler. I try to stay clear of those people nowadays, simply because all they're doing is taking a deal that I just saw on Facebook or got an email, and they're adding $10,000 or $15,000 to it, saying, "Hey, I got this great deal. It's in your area. I know you like to buy." And I do a lot on the West Bank, on the South Shore, and it's like, yeah, but I just got that deal for 15 or 20, whatever it is, less. Why would I pay more? So I stay away from those wholesalers, those daisy
When I
chains or
see
whatever.
the same deal 4 times in my email, number one, I'm paying attention who sends them. And if I get one at 12 and then one at 1:30, like things like that, one of the first things is that's going to mar my view of those other people. There have been times I've called and I've been like, the first person, I'm like, "Hey, are you direct to seller? You were the first email in my inbox. Are you direct to seller?" And if they're like, "Yeah, this is my deal," they're like, "Okay, well, first of all, you've got 5 people sending it into my inbox." Second of all is, so one of the things, so let's hash that out here. This is one of the most widely criticized part of a wholesale deal, is what's called a daisy chain. And so I'm going to let you guys kind of explain it here. We're going to talk about the right way to go about doing something similar to this, but then also the wrong way. Steve, you want to give your views on what daisy chaining is, and because next we're going to talk about a JV deal and distinguish the difference between the two.
So a daisy chain, there's probably 2 ways to do it, and they're both not great. But the first way, probably the worst way, is daisy chains often is what Stephen describes. Someone sees a deal on Facebook.
So you see my $22,000 trailer
Yeah.
that I'm assigning.
I see it on Facebook. That's why, just to go further, why I don't really post deals on Facebook. But let's say Courtney posts a deal on Facebook. I see it, and I'm like, cool. I grab that information and I'll send it to my buyers list. And she's asking $22K for it, and I'll say $27K. So I'll send it out to my buyers, and that's a daisy chain. And that's a couple of things wrong with that. First, it's illegal. You don't have a right. You don't have a contract, so it's illegal. You shouldn't do it. Secondly, it's just unethical. Like to the wholesaler who has it, to the person whose house it is. Like you're showing it. Also, you're letting your buyer down because I might send it to Steven. He's like, "Oh, cool. Like yeah, I'll buy $27K. Cool." And then I'm like, "All right." Cool. Courtney might have sold that already. I don't control. I can't. He says he wants it. How do I? Now I need to go to Courtney and try to get in the middle. I don't have control of that deal. So it's wrong. So that's daisy chain. Don't like it. Some people are known for them.
So let's be very clear. Yeah. So some people, they have made a business out of doing that, where they take other people's deals without their permission and they spread them. That, number one, will get you. I have kicked very few people out of our Facebook group or this group. One of them has been for that reason, because they would not stop. And it was one of those things where I was like, explain to them how this is what causes legislation to impact the wholesaling world, right? Because you cannot, if you do not have a legal interest, you cannot market it for sale, right?
Can I take one other level of daisy chain, which is not as bad, but I just would highly recommend against it. So there is some times where it's not as sinister. Like I might say to Courtney, "Hey, I can get a buyer for that, but if I get more, will you let me do that?" So she might give me permission to market it, and I'm putting a markup on it. Still highly recommend not to do that. It's not as unethical, but it's like.
But even doing that.
But now Stephen sees this deal at higher than it actually is going. So like how am I going to build a good relationship with Stephen? How am I going to build a really good buyers list when I'm putting more money on it? You know what I mean? But sometimes some people, I'm generally more less experienced, that they'll let people do a daisy chain, but it's still illegal actually, because I still can't market it. I don't have a contract.
You're not a legal party to the transaction.
Not a legal party to the transaction, and it's still unethical. There's more to your buyer. You're not going behind the wholesaler as much, but you're not doing the service to the buyer, and you're also that wholesaler doesn't know it. It's hurting them too because he's seeing the deal around. And
so we're going to talk about the right way, which let's talk about joint ventures. But here's my last thing with daisy chains is, as a buyer, when someone comes through with the deal, I'll ask them, are you direct to seller under contract on this? And if they fumble their words, I will then say, either tell me the truth or we're going to end this phone call. Straight up. And if they're like getting weird about it, I'm like, is it because I'm direct or because you're not? You know, I'm gonna figure that part out, because if they're not direct, the likelihood of me being able to close the deal goes down. Why? Because they don't have control, like he talked about. So if you're a serious buyer, you're looking to buy, you need to make sure that they have control. Because without control, again, for example, Steve can be out pushing my deal and he doesn't know if I've sold it. He doesn't know if something blew up in the deal, like a title issue, or hey, we learned there was this additional, issue. And because I don't pick 100% of every detail in when I blast out deals, right? There's more things that I may know that I may, share when I talk on the phone with someone, right? So what's important, on those daisy chains though is, if you are a wholesaler, don't just give permission to people to go, hey, I have some buyers, can I share your deal to my buyers? Don't do that. Seriously, it dilutes your product. Now let's talk about joint ventures. For the sake of time, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so for joint ventures, typically on my deals, before I go to joint venture, I would like the opportunity to sell the deal myself first. I have a whole team, so everybody eats off that deal. So, my first thing is to get it sold myself first, and we can make the most money we can for the team. If we get into a crunch and I need help, that's when I would reach out to Steve or, other wholesalers that I know they'll reach out in respect, and I'll say, hey, give me another 7 days and check back with you. Let's say I hadn't sold the deal in the 7 days and they follow back up with me, hey, you want a JV on the deal. So from that point, we would do a JV contract, spelling out, okay, hey, I have it under contract at this, we're going to do 50-50, 60-40, 7-30, but everything is spelled out where they have the right to market it and what the percentage is going to be. They know what the numbers are, so whenever they do send it out, it's the same numbers, everything is on the same page. If I had it out there at 70, we agree we're going to drop it to 69 or 65. Everybody's seeing everything across the same platform. And also, when they go to close it, most of the good title companies, they're going to want to see a paper trail, and they're going to want to see that JV contract before they can cut that other party that check as well.
So Steve and I have, we actually started our business relationship joint venturing because he was doing all of his marketing in New Orleans, but he would get Northshore deals. I was on the Northshore, and he'd be like, Courtney, you had the buyer's list, you knew the neighborhoods, all of that. Plus, he didn't have to drive an hour to come, inspect a property. And so he'd call me up. Again, joint venture that literally says, what we're going to, split. It references the contract that was signed with the seller, right? All of that. So it makes me now a principal in the transaction. Does that make sense? So that's the important part. If you want more information on this, I did a panel in the past. It's on the YouTube channel. It's called The Art of a JV Deal. The Art of a JV Deal. I talked about partnering on wholesale deals, partnering on flips, and partnering on rentals. And Steve was on that panel. And so that is something that if you want to learn how to properly, we talk through paperwork, we talk through a lot of the responsibilities. So Steve and I still joint venture some things. When we do, I generally put at the bottom of the email that this is an active joint venture with, and I might say Home Buyer Louisiana or something like that, so that if they're seeing both, they know it's not a daisy chain situation.
So it is all right to work with someone as long as you have the paperwork, and I highly recommend it's exclusive. Don't do joint ventures with a bunch of people, because then it's all everyone's sending out. I would say just one, you're gonna wholesaler.
That's how you sabotage your own deal. Okay, so to move on from that, it's a really important thing. I know buyers who don't buy from people who have a bad business, a bad reputation of doing that.
And can I just say a real quick point because on the daisy chain on that you were saying bad deals, just for a wholesaler, your buyer's list is vital. It's vital. But the point is, don't burn it, right? If you're sending out wrong details, if you're overestimating ARVs, if you're putting bad information out there, the buyers will turn off, right? Like, and that kills your business. So it's not worth it, you know. So just be conscious of what you're putting out. If it's not a deal, I will not send it. Like, it's not going out, you know. And I believe because I do that, when I send a deal, buyers look at it, buyers react to it. If they wouldn't do that if I was sending out crap. So it's really
So next question we're going to, so for the wholesalers, let's talk through the process. Steve, you walk that property in reserve on the way over here. Let's start walking through the process of what happens. Jay, chime in. So you have this lead that you are contracting. What are going to be the parts of the process? And let's walk all the way to the closing table so a buyer can see what the process looks like.
Yep.
And let's talk through the different phases. And then Stephen, if you want to chime in as a buyer of anything that you've experienced as well.
So this one, I have a contract on already, so I have a contract to buy it, so I have a price negotiated. I just went to the property to take the photos and videos. I generally do it before I contracted. This one just came through different. But, so I now have that contract, I now have photos and videos. What I'll be doing for tomorrow morning is I'll be putting those photos and videos into a Google Photos thing so I can share with my buyers. I will draft an email with the basic information about the property. I won't include, personally, I don't include the full address when I send it out. I include the street, everything else. I will talk about the square footage, the flood zone, what I believe the ARVs, put a couple of comments in. I don't say the rehab value. I have an idea of what it is, and I've used that to calculate my price. I don't share it. My personal opinion is everyone's rehabs are different. I'm not going to tell you what it is, you know, but I will tell you that things are wrong. So for a good buyer, you're generally like, yeah, that's an ARV. You know, obviously validate it, but you should be in the ballpark. You're going to see the things you need. You're probably going to figure out what you're roughly going to spend. You're going to know if you're interested. And then I just don't share my address just as a block to the daisy chainers. But, you know, if Stephen's interested, he'll email me, hey, what's the address? I'll give it to them. I'm not hiding the address. I'm just not broadcasting it out to my whole list. And therefore I know who's interested. It gives me immediate feedback. There's people that I know that people are asking. So I'm going to send that out. They're going to want to see the
Let's pause right there. Jay, anything as far as when you put all that information, anything you want to talk about what you send out info-wise?
Yeah, I think I do the exact same thing. I've tried it both ways. Sometimes I do it with the address and not the address. So like Steve said, I love it when I don't put the full address because I do get feedback on who's checking it, who's interested, because they're going to call and ask for the full address. I love that. But sometimes, depending on my bandwidth, I'll go ahead and send the address out, but only to my list that I will send it out to. You know, we do the Facebook post, but that's kind of last resort after we've done our list first. And definitely on something public or social media is just general neighborhood, and then the address. I mean, not the address, the picture of the house. Now, there's something else you said you didn't do. Was the address? Oh yeah, repairs. So I've done repairs and I've not done them. And that is true. Repairs, you know, people could say 25,000 and somebody else will come back and say it's 100,000 in repairs. So it's crazy with the repair situation. So I do put the repairs on there, but hey, some people may pay a lot more for them, pay less, so it may be better not to put the repairs.
It's not wrong, but that's a personal preference. Like it's not wrong, but I just for me, I always say this: if I put the repairs, it's wrong 100% of the time.
Yeah,
right?
but
I'll tell you why. For someone, they'll look at it and go, I've got way cheaper than that because they've got their own crew,
That's right.
they're set up, and other people go like, no way, because they've got external GCs. Like it's just they're gonna do a different. I'm not gonna tell you what it is.
It's all about the finishes as well.
You know,
Yeah, are you going to flip it, or are you going to rent it, or are you going to tear it down and rebuild?
What do you think, Richard? What you got?
Well, so legitimately, real quick, I could add Richard to this panel for the sake of time. I literally almost invited you up here. So real quick, stand up and introduce yourself. You did earlier, but again.
Richard McCrae, I'm out of Baton Rouge. I wholesale in Baton Rouge and New Orleans.
And you've been doing this for a good while.
I've been
You're an
doing
OG.
this for 20 years. So
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of rehabs. The last 5 years I've been wholesaling.
Comment or question?
Comment. One downside of putting the address in there, I've had a buyer go knock on the door and ask the seller to let them come in and see it.
So a few bad apples, right, that you pull from. People, okay, so if you do that, that could be literally, legally torturous interference, and you could be sued.
And so that's a problem, but also you get to control the traffic, because some deals you send out, and it's like you know it's hot, and you actually have to slow it down, because you don't want the tenant disturbed. So
No, or the buyer going to the seller.
You don't want the seller disturbed, right? So that if everyone wants to go, if you've got the address, they can just go, and that can be a real problem. So at least when I'm asking, I know it's hot, and I can also control traffic a little bit, and that's the reason I don't do it.
So next part, let's talk about that. You're talking about it, photos. Are you sending? Let's talk about your photos and videos. Any quick tips on that from you two?
I would say that is real vital, and I always train my people to do really good detailed photos and videos, and the really experienced professional buyers, they can almost pretty much make a decision off the photos and videos if they are really good photos and videos. So that is really key, getting really good photos and videos. That speeds up the process.
We aim for about 50 photos. So I'm like, I can almost do this room. Be like, so you're taking a whole shot here, but then I'm going to be looking at every, I'm going to be sending a photo of the water heater, the AC, the electrical panel, underneath the house if it's raised. Everything that is in the roof. I'm going to be sending every little thing that is necessary. One of the big things is underneath every single vanity or kitchen sink, I'm going to open up that cabinet and take a photo. Why? Because that's one, you can see some about the plumbing, but also, is it leaking? Is it moldy? Is it, no cabinet underneath? Stuff like that. Those are the things that you want. One of the things I also do is I take a photo of the utility. So if it's a public utility, I take a photo. I walked to the house right before I came here. I joked with them. You probably can smell it on me. But it had public water but private sewer. So I took a photo of that so I could remember. You forget with all these houses, right? So I do that. Take a photo of the meter out by the street, and then there was an aerator and the sewage treatment, so I took photos of that, right? Those are the things that are important because a solid wholesaler, they know the more photos it eliminates. Number one, it can help solid buyers kind of, figure things out. But let's kind of start moving on in here.
Just to say though, practically speaking, sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes the photos will vary depending on situation and tenant. So
just told me
it's not always possible to get all of the shots for sure. And just the thing to note though, for wholesalers, it's different to realtors. You're taking photos of the problem. Like a realtor, you got the wide lens, you make it look nice, right? That's what you're meant to do. For a wholesaler, you see the problem, you take a photo of the problem, because you want to be transparent and show the buyers.
Still need to show the room.
Yeah.
But it's important. You want
Right.
if the foundation's cracked, they look close up. So like take the bad photos to go with the general photo.
And for new wholesalers, I'd say slow your videos down. A lot of times you see people that
Right.
See, I don't know what the perfect mix is, because I've also seen some videos and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so bored. So I don't know what the perfect solution is.
All right, so those are some things that are helpful, right? When there's a ton of photos, you can start looking at things, the mechanicals, right? AC, HVAC, roof, electrical, plumbing, foundation, all those things are important. All right, so at this point, Stephen, that was a good input though, like, hey, make it to where we can, some of those photos, I called a wholesaler about a deal, and I said, hey, where's the rest of the photos? He said, well, there was literally someone going to the bathroom with the door open. And I was like, you probably saw more than you wanted to. I'm glad you didn't share it. So there's, and he was like, he was telling me, hey, there's 3 people passed out on drugs on the couch. I was like, you have to be mindful.
There's a situation where we wholesale deals, so you need the buyer, the situation is different. So you need to find out, what's going on, because you're getting a discount because something's going on, and it just means everyone's a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's not a perfect open house where you got to figure out what the situation is.
Speaking of that, do you show deals, wholesalers? Do you show deals on one-by-one basis or open houses? Jay, what do you do?
So it's a first come, first serve basis for me, but it is easier. I'll set a date for an open house, but if somebody come with full price over asking, it's first come, first serve for me. I know Richard, you do it a little different. which I probably shouldn't do it that way that you do it, but first come, first serve. Somebody come with my number or over it, you know, they got the contract, let's move to the next one, you know, but that's
We're gonna talk about offers here next, but open house or one-by-one showing?
Depends. So again, everyone's different. So if it's simple, vacant, lockbox, I'll generally just let people go if I know them. Like I'll send them. To be honest, if there's someone there, I'm generally trying to do one showing. So what I will do is I'll send the deal out. People interested ask the address. I'll send them the address. I'll be like, if they can't have access to see it, I'm like, drive by, look it up online, run your numbers. If you think it's a deal, let me know and I'll get you in. And I try to do one showing just to minimize impact to the tenant or seller. And I'll get a couple of, you know, I got one tomorrow, you know, I've got probably 5-6 people coming, it's more than enough. Like, so they'll come, we'll get them through, and that should have signed after that.
So one of the big things is, again, if it's vacant, I don't generally just send people, especially if I don't know them. If they're a new buyer, one of the ways I vet them is by getting to know them through a showing. And so I generally will make myself available to get to know a new buyer that I have not closed with before. So let's talk about vetting buyers. So, Stephen, we were kind of talking about earlier, like vetting wholesalers, right? And then, you know, when you get to meet a new wholesaler, like what do you, you know, when you're buying your first deal from them, what are your, you know, what does that process look like for you?
For me, it's a little simple. I mean, you know, the wholesalers have the deal. I'm not direct to seller, so I'm kind of at the wholesaler's mercy unless the numbers are way off, in which I'll tell them what my thoughts are and where I think we need to be for it to be a deal for me. But from looking at a buyer perspective, that's again more about the wholesaler.
And their process.
Yeah.
When your number, say they're asking the 22 and you're saying, hey, my number's really, you know, whatever at below, but, you know, I own next door, I know this area very well, are you still submitting those offers to people?
Yes, I mean, I'll talk with them. I mean, that's where the conversation goes is, you know, you're asking 22, I really think it needs to be at 19, and if you can get it down to 19, I'll take it. You know, because although I look at the pictures, I'm still, you know, I guess I'm old school and I want to at least walk the property one time. There's been many properties I walk through, I walk out, and, you know, I'll tell Steve, I'll take it, draft the papers, send it on over, we'll close it next week wherever you're set or at my attorney, and we're done. But for me, there's been very little, I guess, negotiation in a lot of cases. I mean, you know, there's been a couple of new wholesalers I've dealt with in the past where they say I'm asking, you know, whatever number, and we'll use 22, and you know, I'll walk in, I'm like, all right, great, I'll take it, 22, I'll, you know, write it up and send it on over. And they're like, well, we got 7 other people here, and I think I'm getting a higher offer. Well, good luck. Let me know when you get, what do you want to put a higher offer? No, I'm good at 22. I think it's a fair price. I think that's where it'll work. And, you know, if you call me, then I guess I can work you down a little bit. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not one of those buyers that's gonna, you know, haggle and, you know, outbid myself, let's say. It's just, you know, I've done that before. Don't want to do it again. So, you know, when a wholesaler says 22 is my ask and I can sell it to you for 22, I'm good if that's the price and I like it. If you can get a higher offer, I mean, we're all here to make money and I get that. So I say good luck to you and let me know if that changes.
So Jay, Steve, give me your thoughts on when you got 6 people, 7 people coming tomorrow. When you get multiple offers, what do you do?
So yeah, so I'm a little bit like Jay in that, like, if you give me the full price, I'm generally going to sell it to you. I'm not trying to get it up. That being said, there is exceptions, right? So let's say I'm doing the open house and do that one open house, like tomorrow. And we've done these, like so tomorrow, I've got like 5 people come to this open house. If they all come through, if one person comes out and says I'll take it, like, I need to give the respect of letting everyone make an offer in that case, because you all came to the same open house. Like, if they come and say I want it and another one says they want it, then I will say that we'll do a best and final, right? So, and again, I won't show anyone else. I'm not trying. At that point, I will not bring anyone else in. If other people are interested, I'm not like trying to jack it up. But you all came at the same time, just because you ran out first and said that I'm going to give everyone a chance to make an offer, and then the offer will speak. There can be some element of, you know, like a smooth closing is important, so, if Stephen makes me an offer and then there's someone I haven't dealt with before, maybe they offer 2K more, but like they're saying, I'm going to use hard money and I haven't used them before, I'm probably just going to accept that offer because I know it's going to close, right? And that's important. And then obviously, like once you've bought a deal from me, you're a VIP. If you've acted right and closed easily, and I will, if you're sort of in the same ballpark and I don't know someone else, I will take that deal. But I'm generally just, if you're offering full price and I take it, the exception is if you've all come at once, I'll give you like that night, best and final, and pick one. Probably the highest, but again, maybe not.
So unless you have anything too different to add for the sake of time, how do you vet a new buyer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I first, ask different questions. What's their criteria? How long they've been in the business? Most important, how do they fund their deals? A lot of these guys will say bank, commercial funding, and that kind of stuff, which we really want to go with cash. We really don't want to do the commercial funding. I have done it in the past, only for local banks that I have a relationship with, that I've done a bunch of deals with, and I can call and say, hey John, I'm wholesaling this deal with this other guy. He's pretty solid. You sure we go close on this? But if I can't do that, I'm going with cash first. So I always want to ask as far as the funding. Now, the next question I ask is, how many deals did you do last year? What's your goals for this year? How many you plan on doing this year? And I say, okay, I'm looking at your criteria. What's your business model? They may say buy and hold, fix and flip. And then I say, well, if I can bring you some deals that fits this exact criteria in the next 30 days, if I can bring you 5 of them in the next 30 days, fits this exact criteria, how many of them can you buy from? And this kind of gives you a vibe too of if you're dealing with somebody with a lot of cash ready to go, or it's one guy that's going to buy from you, then you don't hear from him for another 7 to 8 months. If this guy say, hey, you bring me all of these, I can buy them, all 5 of them within 30 days, that kind of piques my interest as well. So those are some of the questions I go through.
And so those are good things.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean if you're just going to buy one deal a year that you don't get the shot. It's just understanding this is by letting them understand where you're at. A big part of that is vetting. Are you going to pull the trigger? When did you last pull the trigger? Have you pulled the trigger before? Right? So if someone, it's their very first deal. So when I vet buyers, new buyers, here's some of the things I do. I say, hey, have you bought deals before? Yes. Did you buy them from wholesalers? Because I'm betting, do they know the wholesale process, which we're going to go into next? And I want to know. Or are you used to buying, for example, at the auction or from the MLS? So I usually say for the wholesale deals, if you're used to buying from the MLS, you're going to see a house, you're going to make an offer on it with an agent, you're going to have a due diligence period, and then after that, maybe you have an appraisal situation, then you go to closing, right? But what I say is buying from a wholesaler is like buying from the auction. When you go to the auction, you don't want to scratch your nose because you might be considered a bid, right? And if you bid, you're buying. And so all your due diligence has to happen when you bid, not, okay, I bid, now I'm going to go see what's going on with this house, right? So with wholesaling, think auction. So if you see this deal out here, all due diligence has to be done up front. For historically, people who are like, hey, I want a home inspection. I don't want to take that right from you, but generally speaking, either you're going to pay, $350 for a home inspection, but you may not be one of the offers chosen. So you're going to be out of pocket. And let's hope you can get them in there quickly, the availability that these, they have for a deal. Or you're going to lock it up, and then that home inspection is just going to be for your peace of mind, because ultimately, let's talk about when you accept an offer, what are the terms of a deal?
So if we accept an offer, you'll see the property, make an offer. If I accept it, then I will send an assignment agreement, which will be the agreement to assign the original contract with a price, and there'll be I do a $2,000 earnest money deposit. So that is, you're going to pay that $2,000 to the title company. The title company will hold it. If you change your mind for some reason, that $2,000 will be forfeited. Right? So it's hard money. If title doesn't clear, that goes back to you. So if it doesn't close because of title or reason on that side, you get it back. But if you change your mind, that money's gone. And
you can burn the relationship, because that's outlined in the beginning. Due diligence done up front. this earnest money is hard on, and it will not be refunded unless title doesn't transfer. If I have a new buyer or it is a bigger deal, so if you're a new buyer, automatically that earnest money is going to go up because I want to make sure that you know that your bid is to buy. But if you're an experienced buyer for me who's bought numerous times that number, you know the process, but you're still going to have it. You don't get to neglect it. I have kept some earnest money before. 2020, I kept a few, and I talked to people and I said, look, when the world was all over the place, there were some people I was like, look, I want to work with you, I want to keep the relationship, but at the same time, the contract's the contract, right? It was still, the numbers were still good, they just were unsure of the world, right?
Just on the point too, that not everyone should buy wholesale straight away. If it's your first deal, you probably shouldn't buy from a wholesaler. And I sometimes put some newer buyers on my list, and I say to them, get on my list, check it out, see the deals, get an idea, maybe ask some questions, but you don't want to buy right now. Because if you are that first buyer, you're probably best to use an agent, go on the MLS, they're going to walk you through it, you're going to get those inspections, you're going to pay a little more, but that's probably right for you. The wholesale buyers, they get a discount, but the trade-off is they're fast, they're cash, quick decision. So if it's your first deal, you're probably not there. Still get on the list. Still get on the list and start to train your mind, but just you're not going to be quick enough. If you're quick enough, you're probably going to be wrong. You know what I'm saying? You don't yeah, I want to buy that now. Earnest money. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, that's a dangerous way to buy it.
So quickly, Steven, as a buyer, what do wholesalers like about you as an experienced buyer?
I would think what they like about me is my charm. I would say it's, I guess my validity. It's, like I've said, if I see a property, we get the address, we meet there, I might walk through with a couple other potential buyers. I walk through, I let them know, hey, I'm interested, I will take it at your asking price. Sometimes it might be, I've got to be a couple thousand off. But again, if the bidding's going up, I'm usually going to say, if it falls through, let me know, and I'm still here.
You're quick to pull the trigger. You're
Yeah.
quick to go take a look at it, and you're quick to pull the trigger.
Yeah. If I'm interested, I'm ready. We've got the money sitting in the bank. We're ready to go. And I don't think any of my closings have taken more than 10 days, or if it has been, it's been a couple days after that. But
yeah, and that means something. It's important. And they'll deal with the problem, right? So Steve's a sophisticated buyer, and I know when he walks it, he can walk it for a couple minutes. Won't spend long, but once he says yes, he's in. He doesn't get all the little issues.
Might be interested.
Yeah.
Let me go think about it tonight.
And that's important, right? And that's why his offer is strong. So if someone's I'm gonna get hard money, you get an appraisal, it's that's cool, you're offering me more, but this deal's done. Right. And it matters the deal's done fast.
So there is something to say about pulling the trigger quickly, but you also need the experience. I also have some friends who they're really good with pulling the trigger, but at the end of the day, that's bit them before, right? So you need to understand, maybe it's something to work towards, things like that. Jake, are there any of the terms when you're sitting at a deal that you're letting buyers know? So we talked about earnest money being non-refundable, and it's not chump change. What else? Title company, talk about. Do the buyer to choose the title company? What else?
Yeah, so of course with the EMD, non-refundable, like you talked about, no inspections, because typically they're going to try to expect a 3-day or 10-day inspection period, no inspection period like we talked about before. And we're real strong about using our own title company. If you get with the wrong title company, they will blow your deal up. Not understanding what's happening, they'll kill it. The only time I let that happen, which I do let it happen with certain buyers that I know are big buyers that knows the process, and I have closed with that other title company before, and I have some type of relationship with them before, but 95% of the time I'm gonna fight for my title company because it's gonna go a lot smoother. They're gonna keep me updated. They know what to say to the buyer. They know what to say to the seller. I have a transaction coordinator too that coordinates that to make sure everybody stay in line, because that's a whole nother hour we can go on once the deal gets under contract, making sure it gets to the closing table. A lot of moving parts. And you can't depend on that title company to do that for you. You can't. You have to be in constant communication. and communicate everything, check in with everybody, over check in with them. But yeah, you gotta fight for your title company that knows about wholesaling and know how to communicate with everybody.
Everything Jay said, and just to understand from the buyers, generally speaking, we've got title working on it already, right? So I'm getting the contract, I've sent it to my title company because I want to make sure there's no liens, and they might still be working on it, but like, so they're already working on it. So if the buyer, hey, I want to use my title company, it's like, well, like they're already working on it. We're speaking to the sellers, we're making sure it's clean, like it's already moving. So you really got to get on board with that.
For the terms, Steve, can you say how long you give your buyers to close? Like when you're talking through those terms, hey, it's already at my title company. Hey, I'm going to accept your offer. So tomorrow, you're going to accept their offer. How long do they have to close?
Well, that would be part of the offer, right? So I mean, generally it's been 2 weeks. Sometimes it can be longer. Sometimes it could be shorter. But part of the offer, you know, when can you close, right? So if there is that multiple offer period, maybe you're the same amount, but Stephen can close in 4 days, you can close in 2 weeks. You know, so
Or your hard money lender is 35 days.
I'm confirming that up front, and then that's in the contract. So in the assignment agreement, it's going to put in the close date that like we've agreed, or sooner if mutually agreeable.
Okay, and then anything you guys want to know about closing day? Anything like the settlement statement that you want to share about that you think is important for buyers to know?
I'll just share the way I do it because I think it's
And then
really,
quickly for time.
we do it really good. You know, I use Title Stream Metairie for a lot of deals, and what I like about them is they do a blind HUD, so they split the HUD in two, right? They split the closing in two. So why that's important is the buyer will turn up first, generally speaking. They're going to bring the money, they're going to sign their side, they're going to see their side of the HUD. My assignment fee will be on that HUD, they'll see it, you know, like that's how I'm getting paid. The seller will come after that, they'll see their side of the HUD. My assignment fee is not on their side of the HUD, so they're not seeing that. They're seeing their side, they're signing, and they're getting paid. So they're coming and getting paid straight away.
Real quick, let's hold off the question real quick because we want to get through some parts here, but I do want to grab it. We glazed over it earlier. You have a contract with the seller. So Jay, you've got a contract with the seller. This John wants to buy the deal from you. What are you going to do paperwork-wise with John if he wants to buy that deal from you as an assignment?
Yeah, so we'll do an assignment agreement, you know, just like we talked about before. Just it's a basic assignment agreement where I'm selling him my rights to buy the property. I know, is that what you?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're going to outline that. The other thing here is do you share anything else with that assignment?
I don't. So, you know, if it's 100,000 and 10,000 of that is assignment fee, my assignment fee just has 100,000. It doesn't have 90,000 and 10,000 assignment fee. That's the total amount.
Okay.
So typically, they don't see the actual fee until the day of closing on the
Do
hood.
you do anything different?
I do the same-ish, but I will include the contract that I have with the seller because they're agreeing to all those terms.
Yeah.
What I will do though is I redact the price, right? So I'll say, like Jay said, you'll see the 100K, you won't know what I have it for, and I do that if my assignment fee is 2,000 or 20,000. I do it for all of them. You'll see it. I'm not hiding from you. You'll see it closing, but it's like if we agree on a price, it's like you sign the price. Sometimes people will negotiate against the assignment fee as opposed to the deal, and I don't know whether that's
So Stephen, yeah, any thoughts on that about assignment fees being redacted or seeing them after they?
For me, I'm looking at the total price. If I'm agreeing to this price, then I'm
Say
agreeing
it's
to this price.
100,000.
Yeah.
If 100,000 works for you, you're good. Do
Right.
you care if I have it under contract at $1?
No.
So, but what's important though is some people, as you know, Steve went over, is sometimes they see you have it under contract at $1. Now, how often do you get that? Like, no,
Probably
but no, but like the thing is, there are some times where there are large swings. The most common assignment fee I think is still around $7,500. It used to be $5,000. Now it's been around $75, depending on how experienced the wholesaler is. But I mean, I've had some pretty big licks over the years. Sometimes those numbers are high, and all of a sudden that person's saying, "Well, I was expecting to profit less than that on my flip," or something. But if it's a good deal for you, be mindful of that, which is why it's a common practice to redact that. And then on the HUD, sometimes if it's a double close where literally Jay will take title, and then he will actually go in public records, and then he's selling it to you. You're not going to get to see on the statement, the HUD statement, what's being made. Okay.
People will get caught in the weeds if they, from a buyer perspective, if they know what the assignment fee is a lot of times. Like Steve was saying, I mean, they'll start to negotiate against that. Hey,
Yeah.
he's making 10,000, 15,000, you know, let me knock that number down a little bit. For me, if it's a deal, it's a deal.
If a buyer negotiates with you, Jay, any thoughts on that? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a really big thing for me. That's a big tip for buyers. Don't worry about what your wholesaler is making. When we know that you always are trying to count our pockets, because this is a really hard business. Like, we talking to 25 people to get one contract, and we still don't know if that contract is going to make it to the closing table. So when you're worried about what we're making, you will be the last person we call. I promise you. And I have some buyers like that. And when my back is up against the wall, that's when they get the call. And they call me. I had one call me the other day. Jay, you hadn't sold to me all year, man. You caught my pockets. That's why.
And the other side of it too is like, you might go, oh, you're making 10K on that deal. You're like, you're not doing anything. It's like it's all the deals we didn't do. It's all the marketing we spent. It's all the houses I looked at that you didn't see.
Right.
You didn't have to see it. I did that, Betty. You know, like
You
all
don't
those
wanna
follow-up
know.
calls. It's not about that one deal. Like, we get paid on the one deal for all the work.
If
out
you're a
here.
buyer and you want that, and you want to save that 10K, get in a wholesale.
Go do the work to do. And here's the other part, though, is both of these guys have a professional wholesaling business. Richard does as well. The overhead, the team, both of them I know for a fact have a team. So the overhead, the marketing costs. I know at the height of my business, I was spending around $7,500 a month on marketing. And so at the end of the day, those things, like, know that you're just seeing their gross, you're not seeing their net. So that's a big deal. I once heard it said that if you're going to negotiate with me, like if it's a legitimately good deal, you're going to try to haggle me, then again, you know, all you're doing is negotiating if I call you the next time or not. So, but here's the reality is, weigh that with what you know, Stephen was saying earlier is, hey, legitimately, I'm interested at this price, let me know. But if you can get higher, good luck, right? Like, best of luck with you. Any final thoughts? Any final recommendations for buyers?
I would say look at all the deals, get the emails sent to you, do your own due diligence, run your own numbers, look at your own values. You know, you can look at a lot of the pictures, like he was saying also earlier, that, you know, some buyers can figure out everything that needs to be done to a house just based on picture and video. And while I can do a lot of that, I'm, again, old school, I just want to walk through it. Again, it might be a couple of minutes, but at the end of the day, do your own due diligence, because, you know, what they're doing for you, some are hitting it spot on, some are a little off, some are a little low, but, I mean, you've got to be comfortable because you're the one putting the money up at the end of the day. And you can't hold them responsible at the end of the day. So, you know, if you're into it, line it all up.
My tips to the wholesalers is...
Do tips to buyers.
Okay,
Let's finish talking to buyers, and then we'll open up Q&A.
Tips to buyers is communicate with your wholesalers, right? You want the wholesaler to know who you are, right? So if you're getting deals, right, sometimes reply to the deals. Give some feedback, give some thoughts, tell them what you're looking for, you know, pick up the phone and call them sometimes. Just, it pays for them to know who you are. So that's really my tip. And if you're top of mind, you get some of those deals that don't sneak out, you know, or when you do make an offer on a deal, because I know we've been talking, I might be more comfortable in selling to you when someone I never heard from, they might have been looking at my deals, but I haven't spoken much. Like, I might not be comfortable with their offer just because I don't know, like, I know someone else.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that. This still is a relationship business all the way around, full circle. Build that rapport with that wholesaler. If you know it's a solid wholesaler, you guys go out to lunch every other month, go out for drinks or something like that. Build that relationship, get to know them, you know, as a business relationship or even as a friend, to build that rapport. Also, add value to that wholesaler. And you may say, how can I add value to that wholesaler? I have plenty of buyers that send me addresses, abandoned property, and we have some work out that if it turns into a deal, they got a set fee that I charge them, and you know they get the deal. I have buyers that send me other buyers. So find some kind of way to add value other than the traditional way. And I even JV with other rehabbers. I had a rehabber the other day. He was like, Jay, I don't want to take this property down. You think you can do something with it? And we JV. So there's other ways you can add value to that wholesaler that's gonna build that rapport and have you on top of the list with that wholesaler.
My final tip for buyers, and then we're going to take questions and wrap up here, is I want to do better at this, but I like getting to know wholesalers, whether they're new or experienced, and I try to give them feedback when the deal is exactly what I look to buy. Like when they're sending, I know it's not just like they're just pushing out another deal, it's when it's like really hits my my avatar of what I'm buying. If it's something, I'd be like, hey, like this sounds like a great deal. If my capacity wasn't at full tilt, like my plate wasn't full, I'd be looking to buy. Or hey man, look, I'd be like, hey, if this was a little bit less of a rehab, I'd be very interested. I like that neighborhood I own down the street already. I like to try to give some feedback because that's also relationship based. And it's really important because again, if you are just, a silent professional watching, again, some of these deals, it goes to, hey, who do I have that relationship with that I feel like, again, the confidence that they've been underwriting deals. Like, what does that show? I'm underwriting deals. I'm looking at it. I'm not just one of many receiving emails. One of the things is that over the years, I have, for example, like we've co-wholesaled deals before. One of the things Steve and I recently did was we started helping other wholesalers. The best way to say it is, number one complaint I get from buyers is that the deals from wholesalers, either the numbers don't work, so like the underwriting is lacking. And a lot of times they just don't know what they don't know, right? Or it is, they don't send out all the information I know to kind of, pull the trigger. So Steve and I, we launched something called Wholesale with Us, co-wholesalewithus.com, where basically we've been working with some wholesalers on their first deals. For example, he's not here tonight, but Bennett, he's 18 years old. And we've got one that we're looking to go to closing with him. He's wanting to learn the business, so he's getting front with sellers. We're helping him pit it out to buyers by, number one, underwriting the deal, but then also pitting the information out there to where it is in a good fashion. We're pitting him with the title company so that it makes sense, because he's trying to perfect his getting in front of sellers and getting deals. But a lot of times wholesalers don't put as much effort into pitting it out to buyers. Or some buyers are just afraid to buy from any wholesaler because they don't know if it's a daisy chain or whatever. And so reputation-wise, we have some buyers who are like, hey, anything you put out, I feel comfortable. Like, I'll run the numbers, but I feel comfortable with the process, that you know the process. So that's something that we've done here in the last little bit just to help, where we're saying, look, we want to show you, because eventually we want to buy from them too, right? And so we want them knowing how to properly send out deals with all the information. And it's kind of like a little bit of like an apprenticeship of some sort, so where we're making sure we won't send out the deal to our buyers. So what we're doing is we're bringing the buyer to those deals. We're not going to take it on unless we underwrite it first. And a big part of that is, hey, we're not going to send it out if those numbers don't make sense, if we wouldn't already tie our name to it. So with that being said, any questions? Adam had the question first.
It's maybe two or three about one thing. Steve, you were talking about the hood, half of it hidden. Is that a double closing?
No, it's not. It's actually, it's really, I think they call it blind hard, technically speaking, but it's literally splitting the hard in two. So just you think about the seller side and the buyer side, the seller just gets their side, buyer gets their side, but we do it in two separate meetings.
And is that an assignment?
It's an assignment, yes.
A double close, something really important with the double close is it's going to have additional cost to it. And one thing we haven't said, which I'd be remiss to not say, most of the time, for example, that trailer in Ponchatoula, it's $22,000 plus all closing costs. So what that means is the buyer has to pay for their closing costs plus whatever the sellers are. And so that is pretty common with assignment deals. And so you want to make sure, number one, you know buyers, you know that. If you're just paying for your side, or if you're also paying for the seller's side. But for a double close, there's some more fees that come on with that.
I'm familiar with the double close, and my follow-up question would be, one, why would I want to use a double close, and roughly what is the additional cost for me on that?
Jay, you want to answer that?
Yeah, so it ranges in between $700 to $1,000 typically that it costs the wholesaler to double close. So it's going to be a case-by-case basis. We always let the...
There's a little bit more on the 325 tax.
So there's like
Yeah,
recording,
maybe
recording
1500.
costs, things like that.
What's an example of when I would want it, or
Right.
it's best to do a double close on a deal?
So it depends on that buyer and that seller. So I train my people up front to let them know when you're talking to the seller. At the end of the day, we want to create a win-win for you. We have a couple of different exit strategies. We may take the property down, fix and flip it, buy and hold it, or we may partner with another investor. You know, at the end of the day, we want to make sure it's a win for you. So we let them know up front we may wholesale the property. So we plant that seed first. But if this is a seller that seems like it's going to be an issue, we're having trouble with them, sometimes it's cleaner to just let them see you buying it and then you selling it, you know, to that seller. Sometimes.
Understood.
So that's just with that. Now, if you're making a big spread as well, and you know it's the butthole who don't like to see you making, you know, that spread, then you double close as well to just keep everything clean. So sometimes to save a deal, that $1,000 that you spend is well worth it.
Well, to keep it clean, couldn't I just do what Steve
Just
said?
look, you can't-
Did
you-
one?
The buyer will still see the assignment fee.
Right.
So if you get in a big spread, you might want to double close it. I would say you got the wrong buyers if that's the case. But I
Well,
mean,
let's
if
also
that's the
be
problem.
Yeah.
very clear. My very first assignment deal, the buyer didn't understand. So I had it under contract at 70, and I sold it for 77.5. So I made $7,500 on it. And so he knew he was buying it at 77.5, but on the actual deed, he purchased it for 70,000. My 7,500 assignment fee was a fee on the settlement statement. And so for him, he was a flipper. He was like, hey, I want it to say in the deed I bought it for 77.5 so that when I sell it, you know, he was thinking taxes, right? Here or there, but that's a common misnomer as far as with buyers. They think, oh, it's good, my deed's going to say 77.5, but really it's going to say my contract price.
The landlord is better because probably taxes are lower.
So 7,500, that's an assignment fee, that comes straight off your tax.
Yeah.
But he did correct, which is where I was starting. But like I've had buyers flip out about that. I'm like, you can still deduct it.
You don't have to depreciate it, it just goes boom.
And for landlords, it actually helps you because your purchase price you can, you know, for taxes and stuff. But just FYI, don't be like, wait, the deed's wrong. No, it's just you literally, it is a fee. It is a fee that is on that settlement statement.
You can leave those blank too, it can be recorded as just value $10.
It can be $10 in considerable goods. I've also done that at times where if I double close, I will buy from seller. So like for example, I'm buying from Cole, I'll buy for $10 in considerable goods, and then I will sell to him for $10 in considerable goods. So no one knows unless they have the HUD what I bought it for or what I sold it for. I have done that in certain circumstances, specifically if I'm buying it for a very low price and selling it for a very high price in a short amount of time. Technically, there's something called lesion beyond moiety you need to look up. And when I rub up against that, which is rare, I do that $10 in considerable goods and $10 in considerable goods. That is a French word, you're welcome.
I'm familiar with that. One other question for you, Courtney. When you talked about doing a co-wholesale and underwriting, what do you mean by underwriting?
Underwriting is a fancy word for just running the numbers.
Okay.
And so underwriting it, I'm saying, hey, you know, what is this deal? Very important buyers, you need to understand how good of an underwriter is this wholesaler, because wholesalers are a dime a dozen. I love working with wholesalers. I, as a buyer, buy from wholesalers, but I may be on, I don't know how many lists, but I probably only buy for less than 5% of the wholesalers. Because most of them, either their underwriting skills are not there, so their numbers are just not there, you know, whatever it may be, right? They just don't get deals, whatever it may be. So those things are important. But buyers, I don't care if you're buying direct from seller. So the three ways I buy: direct from seller, from agent, or from wholesalers. You need to run your numbers in all three situations yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the captain of your ship and you're running it. Don't rely on other people's numbers. If they say it can rent from XYZ, go run those numbers. If they say it's worth ARVs this, go run those numbers. If they say, if they say the rehab is XYZ, if they say it's in flood zone X, the first time I believed the seller that it was in flood zone X, guess what it wasn't in? Flood zone X. So, and I closed on that thing.
I take pride in my numbers, but like I said, check them. I mean, it's like it's not. I can't guarantee them 100%. Like there's margins of error, so like check them, check my numbers.
Any other
check everyone's
questions?
numbers.
I I have one. The contract that you have with the seller, is that like a standard Louisiana contract, or do you have your own custom contracts that you use? Because obviously that's what we're buying.
Yeah, personally I have my own. It's real simple. I just find it's much simpler for the sellers, but it's real easy for a buyer. Like
John, you're licensed. You're getting licensed. Unless the wholesaler is a licensed individual, they don't have to use that contract.
I have done that before. I have used it with someone once insisted, and you can use it, but it's more complicated.
How would you advise a wholesaler using the area to build their buyers list?
Come to meetings like this frequently. If you're a cash buyer, raise your hand right now. Yeah, he's like counting them, right? We're about to end. I know we're doing overtime right now. It's all good. This is when the game gets good. But every meeting after the meeting, we go to Chimes at 8:45 and go get drinks and food. That's where the real networking goes into play. But make sure you come to these because number one, you can share your deals, but also go watch. Let me tell you two things. Go watch the YouTube channel. You can hear either people that I've interviewed, things like that. You can find real buyers through there. Come to these meetings. Also, you run a meetup on the West Bank, and they interview active buyers. Their meetup is solely an interview with active practitioners. So if you go through their YouTube channel alone, you could probably, how many videos do you have?
We've got like 80 videos. There might be 25 interviews. Buyers, real
buyers. You're doing the
most people are my buyers. Like I'm real good buyers. Like I bring it because like I know they're busy, but they're not teachers. They're not out there coaching. They're actually doing stuff. So yeah, go to the YouTube channel.
Go to the auctions, the foreclosure auctions, and literally go see who wins and say, hey, can I get your card? Hey, if I found a deal that was a good deal, would you be interested in buying it? Here's the thing is, it's a two-sided YouTube channel. January of this year, he spoke on wholesaling. Steve doesn't talk about it often. He exited from a very successful tech company where he was the sales division. Very successful, went public, was worth $500 million in Australia. So he understands sales and marketing. His wholesaling business, number one, not every wholesaler has a wholesaling business, but his wholesaling business, obviously he's making great strides in this area. Go watch his video from January as well on the YouTube channel. Any other questions? All right, so 9/12, next month is the next meeting. Around the first of the month is when I announce it. It's going to be here. We're going to Chimes. If you guys want to come join us, you got to take care of your own drinks and your own food. But I hear it's good. But thank you guys so much for coming. Let's give them a round of applause. And real quick, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
PelicanRealtyLA.com, office number 504-872-9612, Stephen Leonard.
Probably best to get me on my email, which is Steve, S-T-E-V-E, at homebuyerlouisiana.com, homebuyerlouisiana.com.
And for me, if you want to be added to my cash buyers list, you can do pinnaclecashbuyers.com. That's PINNACLE, cashbuyers with the S.com. And you guys can reach out to me on social media and DM me. It's J Alexander, J-A-E space Alexander. And then on Instagram, you should be able to find me under J Alexander as well. But the handle, I think, is Pinnacle Homes LLC 504. So either one of those, you will be able to find me on that.
And if you're a buyer looking for wholesaler, also get on Richard McRae's.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. And for me, Courtney10k.com, come up, get one of my business cards. I do have a page. It is Southeast Louisiana off-market deals. It is a Facebook business page. When I have deals, if I put them on social media, I put them on there.
What about Richard?
Richard, do you want to share about how best way people get in touch with you?
Yeah, let me see if I can remember it. It's
do you have any business cards on you?
BatonRougePropertyDeals.com.
Anyone watching at home, BatonRougePropertyDeals.com.
Look, last thing I'm going to give you a tip. Buyers, if you want to find solid wholesalers, come to meetings like this and see who consistently puts out deals, but also come to the person in the front who puts on the meetings. So when I'm trying to buy in Baton Rouge, when I got there, I said, hey, who are the professional wholesalers in the room? And I'm finding out who's already doing deals. That was the first thing I went and asked the meetup host, and they pointed me to like a few people in the room. That can be, you know, the cream of the crop is going to rise to the top. If you're a newer wholesaler, you just got to, people got to get to know who you are. All right, guys, I've taken enough of your time. Do we want to give out a book? You guys are welcome to leave if you want to, but we're going to give out a book. You got to give out a book. You got to give out a book.
I'm doing to the
So how does this work?
Just pick someone and give out a book.
Who wants a book?
See how it's hard every time?
First hand goes.
See, it's hard every time. How do I do this, right? I figure that out.
Just dance. Let's go.
All right, guys. Thank you. See you guys at Chimes if you want to come join us. Otherwise, see y'all next month.